I'm sure you've seen epoxy river tables and waterfall tables on YouTube before. The builds are fun, they look really cool, and believe it or not, they're not too difficult to pull off. But some might argue that they're overdone and hence unoriginal, and I can certainly see that argument. So I'm going to create this epoxy waterfall coffee table with a twist, and I'm going to incorporate some iron into it as well to create a modern industrial aesthetic. See what I did there? My shop is called the Pecos Aesthetic, so. We did an office room makeover in our house about a year back, and I built an L-shaped corner desk with 2 butternut live edge slabs and iron table legs with a burnt brass finish. I fell in love with the industrial look the legs gave this table, and I wanted to recreate it. Luckily for me, the company I bought the legs from, Drake Casting Company, also makes coffee table legs, so I'm going to pick up a set of those in the burnt brass finish to match the desk. I went back and forth between what kind of wood I actually wanted to use for the live edge piece for this project. I have 7 to 8 butternut slabs that a friendly customer was nice enough to let me mill up after a storm a few years back, and those would obviously match the desk. But I also have these 2 beautiful hickory slabs that I've been saving for a project, and I love the look of hickory. The contrast between the sapwood and the heartwood
gives me a woody.
At the end of the day though, I'm matching the iron legs to the computer desk, so I think it will look best to use the butternut slabs. I'll have to use those 2 massive hickory slabs on a future project. By the way, the best part of taking slabs out of a wood pile is restacking the lumber.
I know you think I'm stupid, don't you?
I'm Ron Burgundy? Anchorman. I love it. Now that I have my selected slabs moved inside the shop, it's time to build a quick frame to approximate the size and shape of the table I'm building. I haven't revealed what the twist in this table is yet, that's coming soon, but in order to make it happen, I need this tabletop to be about 40 inches long by 54 inches wide. So I'll make my frame that size, and then I can use it to figure out what the best way to orient the slabs are to achieve the look I want. Then all I have to do is mark them and bust out the old trusty track saw. If you plan on doing any work with live edge slabs, by the way, then a good track saw is a must. While I'm working on these cuts, if you found any of my content interesting or helpful, I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon to be notified when new videos come out. I can't tell you how important and appreciated your engagement with this channel is. Thanks, guys. With my slabs marked and cut, the next step that I like to do is flatten one side of my slabs. So I'll set up my CNC machine to do that. There's a good reason I flatten one side of the slabs. When I put them in the mold that I'm going to build on the next step, having one side flat will act as a wall to keep the epoxy where I want it when I pour it. More on that later. I'd like to throw a quick shout out to Drake Casting Company who provided the table legs for this build. Their legs are 100% cast iron and come in a variety of finishes. They're heavy duty and durable and add a beautiful industrial look and feel to your pieces. They put a personal touch on things as well. I received a personal thank you note on my order. Check them out. I use melamine to build my epoxy molds. It creates a non-stick surface, which together with tuck tape will ensure that you're able to get your project to release from the mold when the time comes. I've never not been able to get my project out of a mold before, but I'd imagine it's a huge bummer. I need the mold to be about 40 inches by 56 inches. That gives me 2 inches of play on both sides, which I'm going to need when it's time to cut the piece to final dimensions. After cutting out the piece from my floor, I'm going to cut 4 pieces that are 3 inches tall for the sides. Then I'll use pocket hole screws to secure it to the floor. I've always used a mini Craig jig to do pocket holes, but it's kind of a pain and time consuming. So I picked up the K4 Craig pocket hole jig, and I have to tell you, I was pumped at the way it worked. It was way easier to use, and it cut down the time I needed to do this by about 2/3. I wish I bought one of these sooner. So you'll notice that I had to put in a smaller piece on the side of the mold, and that's because I'm an idiot and messed up. I didn't realize that the melamine I had wasn't long enough to allow me to use one continuous piece. No problem though, adapt and overcome. I'll just cut a smaller piece to fit, throw in some pocket holes, and secure it in place. After that's done, I'll add caulking to all the seams to ensure a watertight seal, and then add my tuck tape. Putting tuck tape in an epoxy mold is probably one of my least favorite activities in the woodshop. It's an absolute pain in the butt. But using the tuck tape not only helps me get the project out of the mold easily, it also helps create a watertight seal. So I guess it is what it is. Alright, so we're 7 minutes in the video, and right about now you guys are probably wondering when the hell I'm going to reveal this twist.
Just don't keep me waiting.
Well, here it is. The twist is the waterfall itself. A waterfall table is just a table that has been built in such a way that the grain looks continuous. The process is straightforward. You basically remove a triangular shaped piece of wood where you want the table to fold over. Then you use a joint of your choice to join the mitered ends, and the grain looks like it is continuous and flowing over the edge of the table. But I'm about to blow your minds. I'm going to have the waterfall not flowing from end to end like you commonly see, but across the width of the table. Why? Because I haven't seen it done before, because I think it will look good, and because chocolate tastes good. Seriously though, putting your own spin on a project is what makes it unique and keeps it fresh and keeps it fun. With the mold in place, I need to make sure that it's level first. Trust me, I know from experience, you don't want the table out of level when pouring epoxy. Bad things happen. I'm going to add a coat of penetrating epoxy to the wood before I do my final pour. This is because the wood that's going to be in contact with the epoxy, if it's not sealed properly first, it's going to release bubbles in your final epoxy finish, and you don't want that. So adding a coat of penetrating epoxy gets into the wood and it seals the wood so no bubbles come out. I've often wondered if Total Boat's penetrating epoxy is just a ploy to get us to buy more of their stuff, and that in reality, a coat or two of polyurethane or shellac would seal the wood just as well. I've never tested the theory though, but if anyone else out there has, please let me know. Penetrating epoxy ain't cheap. Now I have mixed feelings about epoxy. I've seen it done a ton, and because of that, there are people out there that are tired of it. But the truth is, while epoxy can be a pain in the butt because of the lengthy setup times and cure times, it's really fun to work with, and if done right, can make your final piece look really good. So I've kind of went back and forth about using epoxy in this build, but there's black epoxy in the butternut desk I built. So I decided a nice black epoxy river would look bomb.com in this table. You'll notice that I've moved out of my shop and into my very elegant basement. A few reasons for this. First, the temperature is cooler and more consistent down here. This particular epoxy cures best at a temp of 60 to 80 degrees, and it's been hot as hell this week. Second, this is a much more forgiving environment in terms of dust. I think my shop is probably the dustiest place on the planet. Third, it's out of the way down here and not taking up any room in my shop while it cures. I'm by no means an epoxy guru, but if I could pass on any major piece of advice, it would be this. Overestimate the amount of epoxy that you're going to need and buy extra. If it doesn't get used now, it will get used on a future build, and you don't want to come up short. Use every method available to you to waterproof your mold so you don't get leaks. Go overboard on your tuck tape and your caulking. The single hardest part of using epoxy for me is the wait time for it to cure. When I get into a build, I'm go, 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 and waiting around for anything is a challenge. But the epoxy needs time to cure, so I guess I'll just have to take a Xanax and move on. I am happy with how the epoxy came out. You're only supposed to pour deep fathom epoxy to a max depth of 2 inches. I didn't want to push it though, so I poured to roughly 1.75 inches. I was a little worried after flattening the slab that the table would look a little too thin, but it came out really good. Stress time. So it's time to make the cuts to square up the table, and 45-degree cuts to remove the quote-unquote triangle out of the bottom of the wood and create my waterfall. This part of the build always stresses me out. I put a lot of work into it at this point, and if I mess this up, the whole thing is ruined. Here goes nothing. Wish me luck. I'm glad that's over. Now we're ready to join and glue up these pieces, and to do that, I use the Festool Domino XL. I picked this up specifically for working with live edge slabs, and I don't regret it. The price tag stings a little, but if you work with slabs and you have one, it'll get used a lot. When I made the cuts for my waterfall, I had 2 triangular pieces left over. I like to hang on to these to make a special clamp jig that really comes in handy when gluing up a waterfall joint. These jigs are long enough that I can clamp the whole jig to my project, and then use the 2 opposing 45-degree blocks to place a clamp on and apply pressure in the right direction. I apologize, but I guess I forgot to hit record on my camera when I went to do the glue up, so I don't have any footage of that. But I do have a shot of me breaking down the glue up, so you can see how I utilize the clamp jig and clamps. This particular glue up went as usual, by the way. I was running around dropping F-bombs and making adjustments while nothing seemed to go right, so you didn't miss much anyway. Sometimes when you're working on projects, things come up that you don't anticipate, think about, or that you've overlooked. Actually, I would say every project has something like this come up. Well, on this one, I overlooked the big split on one of the side pieces, and I decided that it was a good opportunity to add some character to the project. I already have the burnt brass table legs, so I thought it would look really good to put in some brass inlays to stabilize the split. I haven't done a ton of inlay work, so I was a bit nervous to go gouging into the wood here, but I used a combination of a compact router to hog out the interior, and then some chisel work to clean it up. And I have to tell you, I think it came out pretty good. What do you guys think? The last couple of steps here is to install the legs, sand for about 100 hours, and then put on the finish. I've talked about my sanding and finishing process before, but if you haven't heard it, I go through grits 80, 120, 150, 180, 220, 320, 800, 1200, and 1500 with my orbital sander. Then I use Merlon non-woven 2500 grit pads to work in the finish. I'm going to be using Odie's oil for the finish on this project. Then I take out a buffing pad and buff it all off. This process has given me really good results in the past. It adds a really nice sheen to the finished product. And this is the final table. I couldn't be happier with how the table came out. I'm glad I went with the butternut wood because it matches the look of the desk perfectly. I learned a new skill and worked with a new material on this build, and I had a blast doing it. If you enjoyed this content, check out this video next about a double dog kennel / TV console build. Thanks all.